Before becoming one of the most iconic killers in movie history, Freddy Krueger started as a simple idea created to represent the fear of falling asleep. Over the years, he evolved from a terrifying figure inspired by real nightmares into a worldwide phenomenon filled with sequels, redesigns, and even crossovers. Get comfortable, because today I'm going to show you the evolution of Freddy Krueger. Freddy was created by Wes Craven, the director of A Nightmare on Elm Street. The idea came after Craven read real stories about people dying in their sleep after suffering from extreme nightmares and intense fear. That obsession inspired him to create a villain capable of invading dreams, the one place nobody can escape from. The name Freddy Krueger came from a kid who used to bully Wes Craven when he was younger, while the famous red and green sweater was chosen because those colors together create visual discomfort in the human brain. In addition, the character's burns were inspired by real burn victims, and the bladed glove was created because Craven wanted Freddy to have a weapon that was simple but unforgettable. Everything began in 1984 with A Nightmare on Elm Street, the movie that introduced Freddy Krueger to the world for the very first time. In this first version, Freddy was much darker and scarier than in the later sequels. He barely made jokes and appeared as a mysterious figure that felt impossible to escape from. The makeup was created by David B. Miller, who designed Freddy's burns using real fire victims as inspiration. This was also the first time Robert Englund played the character, even though the studio originally wanted a much larger actor physically. Before becoming the creature of nightmares, Freddy was a child killer from Springwood who ended up being burned alive by the parents of his victims inside an old boiler room. Over time, that event transformed him into a supernatural entity capable of attacking people inside their dreams, something the franchise continued expanding in later movies and also in the Freddy's Nightmares TV series. A Nightmare on Elm Street 2: Freddy's Revenge tried to change the original formula quite a bit. In this movie, Freddy no longer attacks only in dreams, but instead tries to possess the protagonist's body to kill in the real world. The makeup also changed noticeably. Freddy's face looked wetter, more grotesque, and more exaggerated than in the original film. Over the years, the movie became a cult classic because of its strange subtext and for being one of the most unique entries in the entire franchise. For many fans, A Nightmare on Elm Street 3: Dream Warriors is one of the best Freddy movies ever made. The story evolved the franchise massively, mixing horror with dark fantasy and much more ambitious special effects. This was also where Freddy's biggest transformation began. He started making more jokes, talking much more often, and showing the dark humor that would eventually make him even more famous and recognizable in horror cinema. Wes Craven also returned as a writer after not being involved in the second movie. With A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master, Freddy fully transformed into a horror superstar of the 1980s. The deaths became much more exaggerated, colorful, and creative, while Freddy himself practically became the main star of the movie. Director Renny Harlin pushed the franchise toward a style that felt closer to an MTV music video, filled with lights, smoke, and over-the-top visual effects. That same year, Freddy's Nightmares was also released, a television series based on the Freddy Krueger universe. Here, Freddy acted as the host of independent horror stories taking place in Springwood. The first episode was directed by Tobe Hooper, the creator of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This episode also showed for the first time how the Elm Street families captured and burned Freddy alive before he became a supernatural entity. The series helped transform Freddy into a television phenomenon and made the character even more recognizable outside of the movies. A Nightmare on Elm Street 5 tried to bring back part of the darker atmosphere from the earlier movies. The story introduced much more psychological themes related to trauma and childhood nightmares. Visually, Freddy started developing a much more exaggerated and monstrous appearance, slowly moving away from the simpler look of the original movie. With Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare, the franchise reached the most exaggerated point in its entire history. Freddy already felt more like a dark comedy character than a horror killer, constantly making jokes and starring in absurd scenes. The movie even included 3D sequences for theaters and expanded Freddy's backstory much more. 10 years after the original movie, Wes Craven's New Nightmare completely reinvented the character. This time, Freddy became much darker, quieter, and scarier again, leaving behind most of the exaggerated humor from the later sequels. The design also changed dramatically. The coat was longer, the hat looked different, and the glove had a much more realistic and demonic appearance. But the most revolutionary part was the story itself, since the movie breaks the fourth wall and takes place directly in the real world. Wes Craven, Heather Langenkamp, and Robert Englund all play themselves inside the movie as well. Many fans consider this one of the smartest and most terrifying versions of Freddy ever created, and it even inspired Scream years later. After many years of rumors, Freddy vs. Jason finally became reality. The movie brought Freddy Krueger face-to-face with Jason Voorhees in one of the most famous horror crossovers ever made. By this point, Freddy had become completely sarcastic and manipulative, almost functioning as the mastermind behind the entire story. Finally, in 2010, the reboot of A Nightmare on Elm Street was released. This new version tried to bring the character back to a much darker, more realistic, and disturbing tone, moving away from the more comedic Freddy from the later sequels. For the first time, Freddy was played by Jackie Earle Haley instead of Robert Englund, since the studio wanted to fully reboot the franchise for a new generation. Although the makeup and effects were much more modern, many fans felt the character had lost part of the charisma and personality Robert Englund had given him for more than 20 years. Now I want to know something. Which Freddy Krueger movie was your favorite? Leave your comment down below, and don't forget to leave a like if you want me to keep making these kinds of documentaries, because they take a lot of time to produce. Thanks for watching.